In Homestead, Florida, stands one of this generation's megalithic structures, built by a single man named Ed Leedskalnin. First in Florida City, he relocated the entire castle to Homestead, Florida, where he completed the work. Frequently compared to the pyramids at Giza, the heads of Easter Island, and Stonehenge, we look at Coral Castle. One giant question remains. How did he build this? The only first-hand accounts that we have of other people watching Ed work is only at night, where he has been said to sing to the stones that now make up what he called Rock Gate. Many of these single pieces of rock weigh over 1,000 tons, and the question remains, how did he do this? We explore this question among many other questions about the nature of our reality, hidden technology, mathematics, and the world energy grid. Come along with me on this journey as we look into just how Ed Leedskalnin created Coral Castle. Welcome everyone to the Yissel Missile Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today we are on part 25 of our Coral Castle Deep Dive series. We have 2 chapters scheduled for today. And as always, I hope you're doing well. I'll get some of this background music queued up. There we go. I hope you've had a good 2 weeks. If you only tune in to Coral Castle here, we skipped last week. I'm in the middle of uploading all these shows to 3 other platforms, so it's taken a little bit of time to do that, and I personally needed a break, so that's why I did not do a show last week for Coral Castle. But rest assured, we have today with 2 chapters to cover from the Energy Grid, written by Bruce L. Cathie. And today's chapters, as in the title showing, we have Ruapehu Erupts, which is a very short chapter, and then the Australian Stonehenge. And we're getting very close to the Ed Leedskalnin chapter of this book. So let me get the slideshow going, and we will get started. All right. And again, please like this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I do have paid memberships that will get you exclusive content on the Great Lakes Triangle. And at some point, those videos will be available to the public. But for now, I am keeping them for members only. And membership is here to help support the channel. And I do have our weekly live chat super chat goal of 5 super chats as low as $2 per super chat. If we hit that goal, I'll read a 3rd chapter from this book today. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Chapter 23. Ruapehu Erupts. A drumming on the roof, like the sound of a shower of hailstones, was the first indication to the occupants in one of the buildings perched on the slopes of Mount Ruapehu that something was amiss. The sound came just on 25 minutes after midnight on a chilly, miserable night, June 21st, 1969. It soon became apparent that this was no hailstorm. What was showering down was rocks and debris from the now active crater of Ruapehu, shrouded in thick clouds thousands of feet above. Gargling the millions of gallons of sulfurous water in its crater lake no longer had the desired soothing effect. The old man had decided that a good cough would shift the abrasive material that had lodged in his throat and was slowly choking up his windpipe. Ruapehu coughed. Showers of rock and debris fell around him, and after a few hours, relief was obtained. Drowsiness overcame the giant, and once more he quietly drifted off to sleep. The sickness had passed. The eruption of this volcano, located in the center of New Zealand's North Island, had been completely unexpected. Scientists received no warning from the electronic gear they had implanted on the summit. The activity had come too suddenly. With all due respect to those engaged in volcanology in New Zealand's Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, I reiterate something which I have stressed before. A study of the harmonic relationships of the geometric positions of the Earth and the Sun at the time of volcanic eruptions will yield important findings and point the way to an entirely new system of study. A complete program based on date, time, and geometric relationships of Earth and Sun will enable a scientist or a layman versed in mathematics to calculate with extreme accuracy the time when volcanic activity may be expected, the period over which the activity may occur, and also the degree of intensity at which it may occur, according to the particular harmonics involved, can be predicted by this method. I am fully aware that the scientists will treat with scorn utterances of this kind from a mere layman like myself. Volcanologists have built up their particular branch of science over a considerable period of time. Yet, here am I, an unknown upstart daring to pull the very foundations from under their precious pile of data. Gentlemen, my apologies. No scientific anarchist, if I seem to be rocking your boat a little, it is only in order to shake a few intellectuals into a more wakeful state. As a matter of fact, I'm not even particularly interested in the study of volcanoes. I have much too much to interest me in other fields. But I do recommend that just one of you volcanologists somewhere in the world takes the trouble to check out my ideas with a computer. If my theory is proved to be correct, then an extensive program can be planned and carried out to open up a completely revitalized branch of science. Let us calculate the harmonic relationship of the latitude position of the Sun at the time of the eruption on June 21st, 1969. Harmonic relationships for light and gravity can be found throughout the whole range of mathematical tables based on angular measurement. These harmonics are the building blocks of the universe and are the only values which have such interrelationships. Who was it that said God made the universe according to the rules of geometry? He was a man with deep understanding of the fundamental character of nature. I have challenged scientists to supply any random values other than those I have calculated for light and gravity, and to try to find similar relationships throughout the tables. So far, to my knowledge, no one has been able to demonstrate that other harmonics are valid. Analysis of geometric relationships during eruption. Latitude and longitude of active point below Mount Ruapehu. Latitude 39.28, 37.1 degrees south. Longitude 175.55, 83, 33 degrees east. The latitude value 39.28, 37.1 creates a harmonic association with the Earth's resultant magnetic field. 3928.371 lines of force per square geodetic inch. The Sun was passing overhead the following position on the Earth's surface. Latitude 23 degrees, 23.44 degrees north. Longitude 7.2191, 66 degrees west. At this time, the Sun position would have been 4116.3621 minutes of arc from grid pole B. The square of 4116.3621 is equal to 169.44444 harmonic mass and gravity. The great circle distance between the Sun position and the active point beneath Ruapehu was 590,335.72 seconds of arc. The reciprocal of this value is equal to 1694, or the 169.444 harmonic of mass and gravity. The great circle distance between latitude Sun and latitude of the active point at Ruapehu was 62.7237.1 degrees. Again, that was 62.7237.1 degrees. The logarithm of the secant of 62.7237.1 degrees is 0.33888. This value divided by 2 is equal to 0.16944 harmonic of mass and gravity. All values calculated by computer. Again, I theorize that all volcanic activity is caused by a geometric imbalance of the universal harmonics which form our physical world. The scientists can now fight this one out amongst themselves. I shall be satisfied if they will at least give my theory a fair trial and make an independent check for verification. And that is the end of chapter 23. Again, I said that was going to be a short one. We have chapter 24 up next, the Australian Stonehenge. And hey, Beyond the Box, good to see you here. I appreciate you watching. So we have one more chapter for today, followed by several maps and a photocopy of the Australian Stonehenge. So we will look at those at the end of the chapter. And this chapter is fairly short as well. It's only 6 pages. And for those of you that are possibly reading at home along with me, we're on page 213. So let's begin. Chapter 24, the Australian Stonehenge. Until recent years, the vast Australian outback was thought to have always been a barren, windswept, sandy desert, devoid of all signs of civilization. A chance discovery in early 1953 was to change this concept and prove to the world that at some period, way back in what the Aboriginals call the dream time, a highly advanced and long-forgotten race had raised constructions there that could be of great scientific importance. The evidence had been hidden away beneath the sand for centuries, and came to light only because a modern-day scientific research team found it necessary to venture into the area in order to probe the secrets of the atom. Ever since the first atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II, the race had been on to discover all that could possibly be known about the structure of matter. After successful tests at Montebello Island, carried out by a team of scientists headed by Sir William Penny, it was decided to establish a more permanent test site in south-central Australia. The person chosen to find and survey the site was a man well used to similar types of operations, by the name of Len Bedell. And his last name is spelled Beadell. He had spent months of his life in the Australian outback on surveying expeditions and was chosen as the most experienced man for the job. The trip into the interior was a story unto itself, and Mr. Bedell did an excellent job of this in his well-written book called Blast the Bush, published in 1967. So again, we have another book here. The initial site chosen was called Emu, and needless to say, the coordinates of the bomb tower were such that certain harmonics of light were fulfilled to cause atomic disruption of the radioactive material placed upon it. While preparations were being carried out for the first tests, it was decided to send an expedition to survey a more permanent site further south, which would be much nearer the Trans-Australian Railway line. Len Bedell once more led his small team into the desert wilderness in their Land Rovers to blaze a trail to this new position. During this trip, He was the first man in modern times to set eyes on the leftovers of an ancient civilization on the Australian continent. I had read Mr. Bedell's book some years before, and had put it aside with an idea in my mind to carry out at a later date some research on the information he gave. During one of my trips to Australia, I was shown some photographs which had been taken of the same area. It was this information that brought my immediate attention to that isolated spot in the desert. On returning to New Zealand, I carried out some calculations and decided to contact Mr. Bedell immediately for more accurate information. With his permission, I quote from his book, quote, "Just about everyone had a color camera, and I had a black and white one, so photographs for the recording of our trip were constantly being taken. None of us knew that we were on the brink of one of the most startling discoveries ever made on any of our expeditions, past, present, or future, a discovery that would provide ample scope for all our cameras." End quote. The convoy of Land Rovers had come upon a small clay pan nestled among sandhills, and while the others drove their vehicles over it just for the sheer joy of being on a flat surface after hours of struggling up and down sand dunes, Len Bedell decided to do a quiet bit of exploring on his own. And here he has quite a lengthy excerpt. So let's jump into that. I did, however, have a brief scan of the rocky steep bank on the western side to find the best lead out from this clay pan. The small plateau beyond was roughly 6 feet higher than the level of the clay pan, dotted about with casuarinas or she oaks. It looked a very pleasant spot. The shales seemed to have broken away to form an inclined plane, which could be used as a ramp slightly to the south of where I was. So I started up and veered towards it to be in position at its base when the others were ready to follow. When they noticed my movement, they made towards me, so I started the rough, shale-strewn ascent. The moment my vehicle topped the rise to level out again, I saw it, spread out right across my path, extending for at least 60 yards either side. It was almost like a picket fence with posts 6 feet apart, made from slivers of shale. Tingling with excitement, I switched off and leapt out of the cabin. Being in so isolated an area, it was obviously an ancient Aboriginal ceremonial ground built by those primitive Stone Age nomads in some distant dream time. And here we were, surely the first white men ever to be gazing in awe at the sight, scarcely daring to breathe in order to hold the atmosphere of it all, and to prolong the memory of this dramatic moment to its limit. The others had driven up the rocky incline and had stopped, wondering for a fleeting instant what was the trouble, until they all saw the reason for themselves. We all knew without saying that it was going to cause much speculation and theory, and that we would all be recapturing this scene for years to come. Moved by curiosity, we ventured forward slowly on foot, as if we were creeping about an antique eggshell china shop. It was impossible to tell how old the posts were, but they must have been pretty old, for they were well weathered at their base, where countless ground thermals and wind currents off the clay pan had sandblasted them. The area was about 120 yards long, the main line bearing a few degrees west of north. The individual slivers of gray, water-impervious shale were protruding 3 feet above the surface of the plateau, and judging by one or two which were leaning or fallen, they seemed to be embedded about a foot or so beneath. Each was comparable in section to its neighbor, measuring 4 inches by 3, very rectangular, with a perfectly straight, long axis. There were about 60 of them, about 2 yards apart. As well as these, there were clusters of vaguely resembling stalks of hay, each made up of one center post of shale with a dozen or so slivers leaning in towards it, the inner ones resting against and seemingly propping up the center. They covered a circle 3 feet in diameter and were 3 feet high. On closer inspection, they seemed to be rather carefully placed. I counted half a dozen of these clusters in all, one placed at either end of the main line, at its center, and one several yards distant on its own. The other 2 were on the plateau level, on the eastern and western side. One of these was erected about 15 yards west of the southern extremity, but on a raised natural rock dais 8 feet higher than the others. And what we took to be the main one of all was the cluster built roughly a chain west of the northern extremity. As the time of this so that was the end of that excerpt there. At the time of this amazing discovery, Mr. Bedell had carried out a hurried survey of the site to record its position for the armchair boffins back in civilization. And it was this information that was necessary for my own research into the possible reason for the remote location of the ancient construction. Len had thought the work had been carried out by an Aboriginal community way back in the distant past, and at that time there was not much evidence to show otherwise. No other explanation would fit the known facts. The photographs shown to me changed this explanation dramatically. Over the years since the original discovery, either nature, due to weathering, or man, due to his insatiable curiosity, had uncovered the sand from a corner of the plateau and laid bare a small section of stonework which had lain hidden, possibly for centuries. In startling detail, the photographs showed a small section of paved surface. The paving stones were large and rectangular in shape and several inches thick. They were very accurately cut and fitted together in an extremely precise, tessellated pattern. It was immediately obvious that no primitive race could have had a hand in a construction such as this. The tools necessary to carry out such an operation pointed to a much more advanced type of civilization being in the area at the time. A find of this nature would be expected more so in Greece or Rome than in the Australian outback. Mr. Bedell described the plateau as being about 6 feet above the level of the clay pan, with a sort of natural ramp on one side, up which he had driven his Land Rover. This suggests that the stone platform under the sand is the top surface of a construction which is at least a few feet high and possibly of something buried deeper in the drifting sand. The ramp could be the buried remains of a flight of steps, perhaps. Recently, Mr. Bedell successfully led another team into the area of the Stonehenge site, armed with movie cameras, and other gear in order to gather more information necessary for our research purposes. I only wish I could have been one of the party, but my flying commitments with the airline necessitated my remaining in New Zealand. When discussing the find with him on the telephone, he said he had misplaced the original survey data he had recorded at the time, but would replot the position on his maps and send me a set of coordinates, which would be within 1 minute of arc in latitude and longitude. He was true to his word and sent off the data the same day. The reason I was curious was that the Stonehenge site was not far distant from that chosen for the atom test. I had long since discovered the geometric nature of the bomb, which has been verified from scientific sources since I published my findings. In my earlier publications, I had shown a set of harmonics which appeared to fit the geometric coordinates of the bomb site. As time went on and more knowledge became available, I became dissatisfied with the initial results and decided to carry out another series of calculations. I thought I had found the most likely combination. Then I received a very accurate map through the post from one of my readers, which caused me to check the results once more. Now I believe that the geometric coordinates used were as follows: latitude 28 degrees, 41 feet, 54.35 inches south, longitude 132 degrees, 22 feet, 12 inches east. And we show a diagram here. And it says the atom bomb test site, Emu, in Australia. And it shows the coordinates that I just read out here. Data from the book Blast the Bush by Len Bedell. The location of the bomb site from map reference. So this is going into all of the different harmonic numbers here. I'm just going to flash this briefly on screen, because reading through it I think is a little bit redundant at this point. And just briefly for those that are just listening. The bomb site latitude 28.69844305 degrees, equal to 286984305 harmonic. The square root is 169406 harmonic. So it's very close to 169444. The displacement from longitude 90 degrees equals 2,217.7 minutes of arc. And the displacement from longitude 180 degrees is 2,489.2 minutes of arc, which totals 4,706.9 minutes of arc. And when you combine that with multiplying by 6 twice, so 4,706.9 times 6 times 6, you get 169,448.4 harmonic. So very close to the 169,444 harmonic. In my recent research, I have discovered the harmonic relationship of the speed of light and gravity. The indication is that the light geometric changes with the position of latitude in conjunction with the acceleration of gravity. This will be demonstrated in later publications. From the latest light and gravity tables, the light harmonic or gravity, at 28 degrees 41 feet 54.35 inches equals 143,551 minutes per grid second. Twice the speed of light, or 2 times c, equals 287,102. And the square root is 169,440,845, or 16944 harmonic. In each case, the geometric harmonics show a close relationship with the unified value of 16944. I believe that an exact match would occur if a star survey of the site position was obtained and the light and gravity tables were corrected by a full computer program. The 16944 harmonic is now known to be the connecting link between the Earth's magnetic field, the speed of light, and the acceleration of gravity. Publications at a later date indicated that most of the atomic tests were carried out at a place called Maralinga, the position that Len Bedell was heading for on his trip south. The harmonics centered around this position also proved to be extremely interesting. The complete Atlas of Australia shows the position of Maralinga to be 30 degrees 9 inches south and 131 degrees 35 feet east. The Great Circle distance to grid pole B in the south proved to be 3,240 minutes of arc. The harmonic 324 is equal to half harmonic 648. The square root of 648 is equal to 25.455844. The 25455,844 harmonic is related to the Earth's magnetic field, as demonstrated in other sections of the book. If the harmonic 324 is reduced by division by 6 times, the resultant harmonic is 694,4444, which is the reciprocal of the speed of light. The Stonehenge site in Australia was not concerned with the disruption of matter, but as it was close to the geometric point necessary to carry out this method of destruction, it could possibly be connected in some way with light harmonics. The ancient site could also have some scientific meaning, which could be of great importance to us. The position supplied by Mr. Bedell was latitude 28 degrees 58 feet south and longitude 132 degrees 0 feet east. If we apply these values without any correction, then latitude 28 degrees 58 feet is equal to 28.9666 degrees. If we reduce the harmonic by dividing by 6, we get 4.82777. The square root of harmonic 4.82777 is 694,8221 harmonic, which, with slight correction, would equal the speed of light reciprocal. The longitude value in relation to longitude 180 degrees in Great Circle distance has a connection with gravitational harmonics, which have been discovered in later research. The value 2,502.35. Also, the longitude 132 degrees is displaced 2,880 minutes of arc from longitude 180 times 0. The harmonic 288 is equal to 2c, or twice the speed of light. Possibly this area will be searched with the appropriate electronic equipment in the future to ascertain whether there is anything hidden away underground. The Stonehenge site could be giving only a hint of what treasures lie beneath the ground for discovery. Hopefully, much more information will be made available about the stone platform in the near future, which will help us probe further into the mystery. So much of this type of evidence is being discovered now that several lifetimes would be necessary to carry out all the research. What we need is a concentration of dedicated scientific minds to spend full time on discoveries of this nature, with complete freedom to pass all their findings on to the public. So we have two maps here. First map has a caption of, "This map was originally produced by Len Bedell during the survey of the site for an atomic bomb test. The rough position of the native Stonehenge discovered purely by accident is clearly shown." Alright, let me make this bigger for you to watch here. Just take a look. So this area in the sand ridges, that's where the location was found. You can see on this side, this is where the test site was for the atomic bomb. Not too far away. And then you have a railway further down. Or actually, right there is the native Stonehenge. See that arrow there? Coming down from the text. And again, that's in Australia. And you see Len's name down at the bottom there. Second map is of Emu, the atomic bomb test site. So it's right up here. So right there, it's right here on this map. I'm trying to get it to focus. My apologies. There we go. Now I can't tell you for sure what the rest of this map is showing. But the test site's right in the center there, by the number 45. Then lastly, we have photocopy 3. This says, these photos show the flag cut, or the cut flagstones uncovered at the Stonehenge platform site discovered by Mr. Bedell. The matchbox resting on the left-hand corner of the displaced stone gives some idea of size. It is obvious that this construction was not placed by a primitive race. Now, I can't really say how large this... I'm assuming this is the matchbox because we have a similar photograph underneath there. And I want to say that we're not seeing everything in this photo because it's all washed out. But those are some precisely cut stones. And so that's it for today. I personally didn't know that there was an Australian Stonehenge, so I'll have to do a little more research on that for the future. Next week's show, we'll be covering Chapter 25, The Organization of a Miracle. And after that, we'll get to Chapter 26, which focuses directly on Ed Leedskalnin, titled The Diminutive Man of Mystery. So I thank you for being here again. I really appreciate it. And if you're watching this in the replay, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be covering more of magnetism and harmonics associated with the Earth grid and how this all connects to the Florida Stonehenge, aka Coral Castle, aka Rock Gate, built by Ed Leedskalnin. So I don't have too much commentary on these two chapters we just read, but I guess I'll just say that it reconfirms other chapters we read in the book where atomic test sites, there's an opposite reaction on the other side of our, because like we're talking about a globe grid here, but if you were able to stretch it out, I'm sure it would make sense on a flat map. At least with longitude and latitude, that's all up and down, two-dimensional. But volcanic activity seems to be in similar force with atomic bomb activity. That's what I'm gathering from this. And then, of course, we have ancient civilizations that were living in Australia, which I really haven't heard much on the internet. I'd really have to dig into that and look for it. Especially this Australian Stonehenge thing. But that'll do it for today and for this week, for this series. Tomorrow, I will be covering the Bermuda Triangle Deep Dive series. I'm moving it up a day instead of our usual Thursday. So be here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we'll continue our deep dive series on the Bermuda Triangle. And I should have 2 videos for members only this week. And then Sunday we will continue our Let's Talk About It series. And we're keeping it to the schedule for now until I catch up with re-uploads on all the other platforms, just so I don't overwhelm myself. But this will do it for today. I appreciate you all being here. I hope you're all taking well care of yourselves. And until the next one, class dismissed.